Hello and welcome to my Shopware Masterclass, the Shopware Update Playbook. In this Masterclass, I will talk about recommendations, tips and tricks around doing Shopware updates. So first, let's take a look at the agenda. First of all, I would like to do a brief introduction into the topic. Then I would like to talk about things what you can do before doing the actual Shopware upgrade. After that, I would like to do some general advices, and after that, some code advices. About me, I'm Shopware. I'm also mostly known as Shaim in the Shopware community. I'm working for 7 years for Shopware, and what I do is building developer tooling like Shopware-cli, deployment helper, and so on, you may know. I'm also active in the Friends of Shopware community and also in test containers and OpenSearch. So enough talking about me. We got the task to update Shopware. So how hard can that be? So when you go to the Shopware documentation, you will find something like this. You fiddle around your composer.json, adjust the dependency versions, run composer update to download the dependencies, and at the end you run php bin console system update finish, which runs the migrations, copies files around, recompiles the theme, and so on. You may also find the way of doing it with a web browser. I would always suggest you to do the CLI way because it has no max execution time problems, no memory problems. The browser can stuck and so on. The CLI way is the more comfortable way and the more secure way. And of course, this is the way to do Shopware updates, but mostly updating Shopware itself is not the problem. Why is an update not that simple? First of all, the shop is not empty, so you have installed like many extensions like payment providers, shipping providers, and so on, other customizations. So you have to update all extensions also. It also depends on what kind of Shopware update you're doing, like a minor or major upgrade. So there are like breaking changes included, which you have to adapt to your theme or other customizations you did. It also depends on if you've done some composer patching. Composer patches is a way of manipulating the Shopware code itself in a more secure way. So instead of that you directly edit the file, you write more like a patch file, and the patch file adjusts like few lines in Shopware code in a more reproducible way. Also, what may happen is that requirements change, so you need to do also some things on the server where Shopware is running, so like PHP upgrade, MySQL or an OpenSearch upgrade, which makes also upgrades more complicated. And it can be also that you are pretty new to the project, so you have less knowledge about the project, you don't know what features are in this project. So that makes the update also complicated. And the problems we are facing here are long upgrade times. So the update takes like multiple weeks or even months. And in that time, you don't want to start with like new features for the shop. So you are kind of stuck in upgrading first. Besides that, because it takes so long, of course, the update is pretty expensive for the shop owner. And because of the time it takes so long and it's expensive for the shop owner, the developers are frustrated because it takes so long. They want to do like new features and so on, work on new cool stuff, but they have to do first the annoying upgrading. And of course, the shop owners are like annoyed because they have to wait for a long time for their features and have to pay a lot for the Shopware update. Now let's talk about things what you can do before doing the Shopware upgrade itself. First of all, what you can do is to check your server requirement. So make sure that your PHP and MySQL version works with the current and the Shopware version you want to update to. We make always sure at the Shopware requirements that you never need to update PHP and MySQL version at the same time as doing a Shopware update. So this step should be always done beforehand, and therefore you also reduce the risk of that maybe in PHP or MySQL update breaks your Shopware update itself. The next thing what you can do is to check the existing deprecations in your project. So what you can do is go to your var log directory and check for deprecations. It makes here also always sense to update before Shopware to the latest patch version of your current minor version, because maybe your Shopware version is so old that the deprecations not has been added yet. And what you can also do is running automated checks like PHP-Stan or ESLint for this, so that tools will look for you also for the deprecations and so on. It can be pretty hard to configure tools like PHP-Stan or ESLint. So what you can do is you can use Shopware CLI for this. Shopware CLI is an own CLI, which is written in Go, which you can install additionally to your Shopware project itself. And it has a lot of commands. And one of them is Shopware CLI project validate. And what it is doing is it's an all-in-one validation tool. It contains tools like PHP-Stan, ESLint, and other tools, and gives you like one summary output. It's also available as a Docker image, so you can also run this as an automated step in your CI/CD system. When you run the command, the output will look like this, where you have the file path where the error has been found with the line number and the is it an error warning or whatever, and then the error message. There are also like multiple reporters implemented, so you can also get an JSON output or like JUnit, which is necessary like for GitLab CI to have an automated importing it to your GitLab instance. Another thing what you should do beforehand is to add Twig block versioning everywhere in your theme. So let's imagine we have already written a block in your theme like this, the base body skip content. So we have overwritten the block, added our own custom content there. The problems we are facing are like when we do a Shopware update is, as we have completely overwritten the block, did Shopware added like new CSS or like data attributes there. So data attributes are mostly important because of like JavaScript plugins. So because the data attribute is missing, so JavaScript functionality is not working. Or do we even miss out some bug fixes? Because Twig templates can contain also logic with like if conditions and so on. So we have to manually check like every our override or just hope they still work as before. And here comes the Twig block versioning handy. And what is it basically doing is it's adding to our overwritten block a comment with a hash. The hash is the content of the original template file and from which Shopware version. And the IDE compares for us the hash if it's still the same one. And when it's not the same one, it will look like this. It will be like yellowish with a warning like the upstream block has been changed. And that means since we have overwritten the block, the core content block has changed. So there's like a difference. And even to find the difference, the IDE can help us here. So we can go to the context menu and say, show Twig block difference. And this opens a new window, which is like a Git diff. So you see how the block looked like in the core before the Shopware update you did and after that. And based on this Git diff, you can decide what things you want to adopt to your override or which things you may not want to have in your override and so on, and update it. And when you have updated it, your overwritten block, you can go to the same context menu and say update versioning comment. And that will update for you the comment with a new hash and the warning will go. This is also deeply integrated into the inspection functionality of the IDE. So you can run the inspect code in the IDE and then you see like all blocks has changed, or even use this inspect functionality to add this comment automatically to all of your overwritten blocks. Besides Twig block overrides, it makes sense to check your installed extensions. Is they are still in usage? So a shop owner tends to test a lot of extensions like analytics tools and so on, but mostly the extension is still installed, but they even maybe canceled the analytics subscription already. So Before doing the update, make sure that you really need all of the installed extensions. It will make your life easier when you have like only the necessary extensions installed to do the Shopware update. Another thing with installed extensions is, are they like compatible with the next Shopware version? And for this, there's also like a Shopware-cli command, Shopware-cli project upgrade check. And when you run the command, it will ask you for the Shopware version you want to upgrade to. And then it checks for each extension you have installed if it's compatible with the next Shopware version and which are not. And then you have already like a good overview which extensions maybe could be like problematic to update. There are two ways of managing extensions in Shopware. The most common way is to use zip files. So you go to the Shopware store, you can download the zip file and upload it to your store, or even do it directly in the plugin manager. So Shopware will download your store and unpack it. The other way is to use Composer. And for professional deployment, we recommend to use Composer because Composer can update the extension and Shopware together, so you don't have to do it in two steps or like in a broken state, because like Shopware is already updated, but the extension still uses old code and is not updated yet. Composer makes sure that you only install extensions that are compatible to your Shopware version, and using Composer can also give you some performance improvements, as Composer can build in static class loader. Because Composer knows like this class is in this directory and can build like a file structure of class name to direct file where it is. And of course, you can use Shopware-cli to do the migration. So you can run Shopware-cli project autofix Composer plugins, and Shopware-cli will do for you the upgrade. Migration to Symfony Flex. Symfony Flex is a Composer plugin which manages the configuration files of your Shopware project. It updates also the config files based on installed Composer packages. So when you like have installed Shopware Elasticsearch, it will create additional bunch of files to configure Elasticsearch and so on. It's required since Shopware 6.5. So if you're already on Shopware 6.5 or newer, you can skip this step. But if you're still on Shopware 6.4, an older version, you should definitely update first to Shopware 6.4.18 or newer and do the Shopware Flex migration first, because it changed fundamentally how the Shopware project is structured and so on. And to do this upgrade, you can use also the Shopware CLI. So you can run Shopware CLI project autofix flex. Before doing that, make sure to have a backup of your project. So in case if something fails, you can still recover it to the previous state. Also, a Git repository would be good here. To summarize everything up, so we did update the server requirements, like we checked if our PHP, MySQL, OpenSearch version is compatible with the current version and the next version we want to upgrade to. We fixed existing deprecations, so we are future-proof. We added Twig block versioning everywhere, so when we do like the Shopware upgrade, we know exactly which Twig blocks has been changed and which we have to touch, maybe. We migrated all extensions to Composer, we make sure we are using Symfony Flex, and all of our store extensions which we are using are compatible with the next Shopware version. So we are ready to start with the actual update. So let's talk now about general advices. Fixing deprecations can be boring because you have to do the same thing again and again. So there are tools which can do that automatically for you. And one tool of them is Rector. Rector is a tool written in PHP which allows you to write like rules. If the code matches this structure, please change the code from that to this. So basically you write code to manipulate code. And for Rector, there's a set by Friends of Shopware, Rector for Shopware. So you can set a Rector and install the Shopware set, and the Shopware set will do like a lot of things for you. So the boring stuff, like this class has been changed with this class, you need to know to implement this interface, you need to know to have this PHP attribute and so on. So it does the boring stuff for you, and then you can focus on the more complicated things. Of course, the same exists also for JavaScript, so you can use like ESLint. It's mostly known for his linting tool, but it has also like an autofixer. For ESLint, there's right now no dedicated rule repository yet, but the ESLint rules are included in Shopware CLI. And what you can do is you can use Shopware CLI to run the automated fixers all in one. So you can run Shopware CLI project fix in your project directory, and that runs Rector, ESLint, and also custom things written by our own for your project, and you're ready to go run. So you don't have to fiddle around Rector or ESLint and configure it on your own. We did that for you in a single command you can just run. For more complicated things like Twig templates, we can also use AI. So we have a little bit of AI integration in the Shopware CLI. So you can run Shopware CLI extension AI Twig Upgrade, give it the path of the Shopware extension, and then specify from which Shopware version to which Shopware version we're updating. And we can even specify like an LLM provider, like in this example, it's the Gemini API. And what we're basically doing is we are sending the AI how the Twig template looked before, and now how it's looking in the new Shopware version, and what kind of changes you did to the template. And what the AI is doing is, like in human, he is like diffing what did changed and what did we manipulate, and do is for us like the changes. So it adjusts the overwritten Twig block and adds, like in this example, the missing data attributes. Besides the AI integration in Shopware CLI, you can of course use also the AI agents directly. So like GitHub Copilot, Cursor, Cloud, Gemini, and so on. So you can give him tasks like update this Twig template from Bootstrap 4 to Bootstrap 5. So mostly the LLMs already know the differences between Bootstrap 4 to Bootstrap 5. But also in more advanced cases, you can say like update this JavaScript, considering the Shopware Upgrade guide, and then you can give even the LLM the upgrade guide from us. So the LLM will figure on its own what needs to be changed on this JavaScript file. Of course, LLMs can make mistakes, so please check the code if it's correct. From AI, let's talk now about code advices for smooth upgrades. How you can structure your code or write even code differently to make Shopware updates easier. First major thing I see in a lot of Shopware projects is that developers tend to overcomplicate extensions. Let's say the merchant come to us and wants to have from us like a store finder. So basically it's a page, as here in the screenshot. So you see like all physical stores where they're located, and then the customer can find the closest one to him. So that sounds pretty easy. Let's take a look how it would look like at the code side. When such a feature would be built in Shopware itself, it would look like something like this. First of all, we would like to have an entry point. So we need a controller, a storefront controller. So we would like to have a storefront finder controller, and it would have a store finder page. So we have an actual page object for the rendering. So because it needs to be extensible, we would have a store finder page loaded event. So a plugin can hook up and add more data and so on, and manipulate the data in the page. So the page needs to be loaded. So we would have a dedicated page loader class. So even using decoration, it could be like adjusted. So because you want to have it like decorated, there's like an interface. So you have a proper interface for decorating it. Because it needs to be accessible in the store API, we would also have a store finder root. So there's a store API which gives us JSON back with the same data. And because of performance, we want to have also caching. So we have a cached store finder root. And we even didn't really start with the feature, but we already created like 7 classes for the simple feature. And what I want to say here is it's fine to do it differently than how is Shopware doing it. The thing what we always see here is that new developers tend to do things like how Shopware is doing, but mostly you don't need that in your project, because your project doesn't need to be flexible as Shopware itself is. When you decide to use like the regular storefront as an example, you won't switch in the middle of the project to the store API. So it makes no sense to support the storefront and store API in the same time. And also like for the extensibility. So your code will not be extended by an external extension. So you don't need all that extension points. And when you want to change something, you can directly go to your extension and change it. So what I really want to say here is it's fine to do it in a different way, how Shopware itself is doing it. Also, how you adjust things in Shopware makes a huge difference when doing Shopware updates. So when you want to do a change in Shopware, you always end in a situation like this. So can we do this change like by configuration? Like we go to the admin, we change some settings and it's fine. We change some flow builder stuff. But sometimes you can also subscribe to events and do it on that way. And in the end, there's also the decoration way. So you can exchange PHP classes with your own implementation and do it completely different. And each path you choose has like different benefits and also problems. So I have brought here like an example. The shop owner wants to completely change the account profile page. So if we would do that with decoration, we would create a new class, which is extending, implementing the class we want to change. In the constructor, we would get the original implementation, and on all message where we don't want to change something, we call the original implementation and return the result of that. And on the method we want to really change, we do our own logic. And the problems we are facing here is that we need to make sure that the method signature is always up to date. So when in a new Shopware version, Shopware adds a new argument, we have to adjust the code again. When they add a new method, we have to add that method also there and call the original implementation again. So it's a burden to keep it always up to date. When we would do the same with events, we would create a new listener and there we would subscribe to an event. Like in this example, we subscribe to a frontend account home page controller. This is the same event as kernel.controller or kernel events controller. But in this case, we just subscribe when frontend account home page, this root name has been called. So there's also like root specific events. So there's also like frontend account homepage .request and .response, which is the same event like kernel.request. It's a little bit boilerplate code saving. But so we listen to that controller event, and in this controller event, we can go there and just exchange the code that will be executed. So we can say event set controller, and then we have a closure, and this closure will be executed when that controller is called. Can also closure here like a different class, so we don't have it to do that everything in an anonymous function. And therefore we have like overwritten, we did the same, but as an event. And this is like most stable because we have to adjust less things. When we would do the same with configuration, we would create a regular new controller and do there our own changes, but we would kind of overwrite the root to our new controller. So in this case, we are copying the root annotation from the original controller to our own controller. And as the Symfony root names are unique and the extensions loaded after the core, our root annotation wins and the root/accounts now points to our controller and not more to the Shopware controller. And this way we have kind of overwritten the same with just configuration. We did now the same page with decoration, events, and configuration. And our recommendation here is, first of all, try to solve it with configuration. So like we did with the controller, with the root override. When it's not possible, try to do it with an event-driven solution. So look if there's like directly an event submitted or like an event before or after where you can subscribe and do it. And if that is not working, you can still go there and decorate. And when you go the way with decorating, make sure that the class has an interface or an abstract class. So you implement the abstract class or the interface and not direct the implementation. In that way, it's more secure, and it's also like intended to be like decorated than decorating like any random classes. And if that is also even not working, you can add a composer patch. So you go to the Shopware codebase itself and inject like the Symfony event dispatcher and then dispatch a new event. And in your plugin extension, you can listen to that newly dispatched event and do the manipulation. And what you can then do is you can upstream the missing event to Shopware itself with the composer patch you did. And when that gets accepted, you can go back to your code base, delete this composer patch when you're doing the Shopware update, and just use the newly added event. So you have like one less thing to care then. And it helped also to make Shopware more extensible, which is great. Now let's come to the major question. How often should you do Shopware updates? And here we cannot give like a general advice, because in the end, when you do Shopware updates more often, like every minor version, or do it like infrequent way, like every year, at the end, you're doing the same changes. And so you have to fix the same breaking changes, do the same updates and so on. So this really doesn't matter so much. Generally, we would say that people doing more regular updates have it more easily, because like in this example, the backpack is like less filled because it's like less things you have to do while you do the Shopware update. But we can also see that doing bigger upgrades is also like much better to plan and so on. So whatever path you pick, make sure the security plugin is installed and up to date so all security issues are fixed. And with that, we come to the end of my presentation. In the QR code, you can find a handout of links, how to set up Shopware CLI and run the various commands. You can find also the direct link in the video description. Thanks and goodbye.